I'm Annie Merry. I'm Director of Faiths4Change. We work mainly across the Liverpool city region, but we do have the remit to go northwest wide, and there's kind of a history to that we won't go into this evening. Really pleased to be here tonight. I want to focus really and share the story of our partnership community garden with St Michael's in the City Church, which some of you may know is just off the back of Liverpool 1, small 1980s housing estate, currently being surrounded more and more by new build, lots of flats, and it's on the edge of the Baltic Triangle. The church congregation itself is pretty small. When we started working together 4 years ago, I'd say there was kind of between 12 and 15 regular folk attending services, most of whom are elderly. There has been concern from within the congregation for a very long time that their church was at risk of closure, because it was particularly small and dwindling congregation, some of whom live locally and some of whom do still come in. Obviously, I won't constantly repeat pre and post pandemic, because we all know these things. So Roots in the City started life actually as we were asked to do a community lunch for folk attending a social supermarket. Just for 6 weeks. We'd had previous conversations with St Michael's before about different opportunities, but they hadn't quite kind of emerged. The time wasn't right. And really that's where the kind of current relationship began. So about 4 years ago, really. And from doing the lunches, it became clear that people wanted to sit and have a natter after lunch and doing their shopping. And so an arts-based afternoon activity emerged, quite often with people actually kind of sharing their own skills and ideas and bringing different things for each other and for the group. So a fairly informal approach. And we've had regular meetings with the congregation after church on a Sunday, really since the beginning, and looking at kind of building that relationship. Initially not having an intention to kind of work with them on the land, and you'll probably guess why in a moment. So that's what it looked like when we started. That's just one shot. A mixture of mainly brambles, some nettles, and enough bamboo to kind of keep all the pandas in China going, to be honest. It had been overgrown for over 20 years. Which is obviously a long time, and however, prior to that, it had been a much loved and well used church garden for all of the congregation and locally in the community as well. But as I say, with a kind of dwindling congregation and really just mainly being open on a Sunday for service, the opportunity sort of started to present itself to us and the church. So we started our journey together on the garden with holding 3 design workshops, because a key feature for us with any project is the kind of co-creation of that project, and knowing that whatever steps we're taking at the beginning, things will emerge and change and flow as we go along. It's a process, just as gardening is really. So this was one of 3 design workshops. The church congregation was really keen to welcome people from St Vincent's Church, which is just up the top end of the estate, Catholic church, as well as people who lived locally, some of whom were coming to the lunch and the arts group. Okay, so within a few months, this bit of the garden looked like this. It started to get clear. You'll kind of probably see in the background against the kind of where the props are holding up the fence. There's actually loads of little plant pots there. The folk coming to lunch and the arts group started growing in earnest and really getting into vegetables. And so they provided this sort of startup collection of plants. I want to kind of go through a few pictures with you and then kind of go through the kind of chunky detail. So it started to emerge and grow quite quickly. As you can see there, a few box beds and much going on. Sorry, I actually did want to sort of point out the hedgerow in that last slide. Behind those tomato pots and various other things that folk were growing, there were a handful of trees in the hedgerow, but not very much else once all the clearance was done, all the brambles and sycamore saplings are out. So one of the first things we did the first winter was, with the support of Mersey Forest, planted up a native hedge of about 150 different saplings. So this was our first major celebration. The church ladies looking super happy, which is why I've kind of wanted to include this. We had an open day for the garden. Over 100 people came. We had music and drumming and art, and a couple of the ladies had decided to organise a raffle, and there was a kind of almost like a kind of car boot kind of environment where kind of various people kind of wanted to come and share and do things. And so it really was a major collaboration that extended far beyond the garden and into the church, and that was lovely. So the clearance continued. It's a very large space, and I'm sure as most gardeners or would-be gardeners are aware that, you know, even if you've got a huge budget, you're not going to clear the entire space in one go, particularly if it's been overgrown for 20 plus years, not least because you then can't replant it and everything will just start to grow back up again. And you'll see sort of various folk working away there. And we've had lots of people involved from the very beginning, some of whom are still involved, and the support we've had has been substantial. So fast forwarding from celebrations in July 2018 and kind of ongoing clearance and activity and so on and so forth, to the pandemic, in one foul swoop, really. We connected with our regular gardeners. I would say at that point we were probably looking at about 30 regular gardeners coming up to 3 times a week, partly to undertake different kind of funded gentle growers, nature connected courses, some of which were funded through Mersey Forest and various others, and also regular on-site City and Guilds practical horticulture skills course with Myerscough College, and a number of other different activities. Plus we had kind of, again, pre-pandemic, every day that we were open, and we were open 2 full days a week, we had a community lunch. We harvested food from the garden, supplemented it with stuff that people brought with, and sometimes people just came for lunch, and that was okay too, or just to kind of sit in the garden. So you may notice that the missing bit at this point. So during the pandemic, my apologies, during the pandemic, we switched to, with the permission of the regular gardeners, to growing quite a lot of food for the food bank, the micro food bank at St Bride's. St Bride's, St Dunstan's and St Michael's are the parish churches of St Luke's. And prior to November the 5th, all photos you can see in the background were hoardings, which were partly keeping up the very elderly fence propped up on the other side by the poles. There was a bonfire locally. I don't know who was more surprised, the people that tore the hoardings down and had a big bonfire, or us the next day when we came in and looked out, and I guess people kind of possibly realised, oh, there was lots going on behind there beforehand. I mean, we did communicate with people regularly, regular newsletters through people's doors, posters and stuff up on kind of the outside of the railings and stuff. But I think, you know, actually seeing inside is something else. For us, this was actually a significant opportunity, despite the kind of the shock. And I think that's kind of, for us, Yeah, I guess part of our approach, and one of the things I'd encourage people to look at, we tend to go from a kind of permaculture perspective. So something that's a problem, turn it on its head and find a solution. For us, this gave us incredible amounts of light and views of really very spectacular trees. And we could see the bird movements outside the garden rather than just when they kind of came in. So quite recently, one of our collaborations has been with the Open Eye Gallery. And they're working with us on 3 projects. They approached us through Liverpool City Council's Urban Green Up project, which is again got many partners and yet another route back to the Mersey Forest, but working with the Urban Green Up project, not least because Kent Street, which the garden looks out onto, is part of the Urban Green Up project. So there's going to be some street trees replacing bollards adjacent to the where the bonfire was, and pollinator packs on the lampposts. So part of our work going forward will be helping to care for those trees. And when I say we, that's kind of folk using and attending the garden. So this is a kind of long stay garden team, and 3 members of staff, 3 long-term volunteers, and at the back in the middle, Emma from Myerscough College, who has become much more than our tutor. She's become a real friend to us. And again, during the pandemic, Myerscough College gave her permission to volunteer with us, which was great. So we had her expertise as well. So just to put names to faces, I'm not very good at left and right. So we'll start with Rachel in the red jumper, moving round to Kath, who came to us via St Bride's Church, Emma from Myerscough, Donna, another member of our team, me looking rather marvellous in my leopard print scarf and green hat, Gary and Caps. So just wanted to include a few quotes from people, really, because I think, you know, sometimes it's not just the process, it's the personal really as well. So a few things there really just to pull out. I think in general people talk about the well-being they get from connecting with each other and the garden, and for us as an organization and as a group of individuals, actually kind of the well-being of land and people is not divisible. It's one and the same. We are nature and nature is us. So I wanted to kind of just pull together, kind of beyond the photos, some key features of our journey, and hopefully that will be helpful to people. So dialogue for us has been crucial. It's been a slow burn, partly because we don't have core funding as a charity. We raise our money through grants and a small amount through earned income. Shared values, key for us and key for the church. And I've put courage there because I believe that actually the church congregation in particular were really courageous in kind of giving us permission to work with them. You know, we had no idea whether or not we were ever going to get beyond that completely overgrown space, and what it would look like. We had no money and neither did they. But there was a real desire from both of us, both parties, I think, to kind of to create a space in the city centre, particularly in the middle of that community, that was completely accessible, and for the church to kind of put out the roots to kind of grow new life and grow into the future, and really kind of offer out that space through goodwill. We've created the project with everybody that's come through it in some way, shape or form, and that's key, and it doesn't stand still. There is a shared vision, and that shared vision is much more than a garden. It's actually an eco hub in the city centre that focuses on and draws together social and climate justice, and is good for people and the land in all of its deepest senses. Gratitude, absolutely, for all of us involved in this has been yeah, is something that continues to kind of encourage us and kind of help us build. Partnerships, policies and strategies. I've put that there because I think sometimes we can get, and I speak from a personal point of view, can get caught up in our doing and not necessarily look out at particularly strategic opportunities. And we're in a time where all local authorities have declared climate emergencies and have climate emergency plans. Actually, how we kind of manage our land is a big part of our contribution to climate change, or mitigating that and enabling people to connect with nature and grow our local ecologies, and biodiversity is key. Extending the boundaries, we're kind of quite good at this. I think probably like most small organisations, actually you have to be looking on the margins and stretching things here and there and everywhere, just to kind of be open to opportunities that aren't necessarily the obvious. At the same point, do look at the obvious. I've mentioned Myerscough College, I've mentioned Mersey Forest, but also we've worked quite closely from the very beginning of this project with Support for Asylum Seekers, which is a Churches Together in the Merseyside region charity. And they've been spectacularly supportive in many, many ways, from providing people to come and clear space, as well as kind of small funds for various different things. Health and well-being of the land, as we've talked about, as I've suggested, is crucial. And for us, that's spiritual, it is physical, it is social, and it is emotional. I'd say one of the things that we've been really good at is recognizing the different skills and gifts that people come with. And I mentioned earlier, when we were able to offer a community lunch, some people would just come and have lunch and go away again, and that was okay. Similarly, even now, and we're in a much more restrictive space in terms of what we can offer at present and numbers on site, some people may just come and want a cup of tea, and that's okay, because actually having that space to just be is sometimes what people need, and it's that quiet and that connection with nature. I've mentioned permaculture. It kind of runs through everything that we do, really. And I think, you know, again, a kind of part of permaculture philosophy is the richness of the edges, those different boundaries where they come together. Sharing and telling stories, communicating what we're doing is absolutely crucial. And I don't mean just for us. Maintenance, a big M, it's a constant. And be creative as to kind of, you know, how you approach it. For us, kind of one of the key ways that we maintain that garden, or part of the ways we maintain the garden, is through the regular Myerscough courses, and many other things too, but that's a mainstay for us. I wanted to just fling in at the end a few kind of opportunities that came our way that we weren't really expecting, but we've been able to kind of, I guess, grow from, and again goes back to the extending the boundaries. So former curate at St Michael's Church, Jill Reeves, has done a PhD thesis about our work, with a particular focus on the garden at St Michael's. And I can't tell you how humbled I am by that, because it's absolutely amazing, it really is. The opportunities with Open Eye Gallery that are continue to unfold. A veggie food brand who I can't really mention because they have very strict rules around, oh no, I will mention them, whatever. Linda McCartney's vegetarian food have very strict rules about kind of how we communicate around our work with them, which is fair enough. But we're one of 6 Linda McCartney food gardens across the country. There's 2 in Liverpool, and we're part of the second one, which is with the LaSalle Hotel Academy up in Croxteth. Old greenhouses. One of our volunteers, who will remain nameless, has a bit of a thing for old greenhouses, and they keep arriving and being built, along with loads of other free stuff it's amazing the stuff that people don't want or can find a new idea for doing different things with, and we're really glad of those things still. And I guess I'd like to just finish by saying, yeah, we're really open to new opportunities, and that includes kind of sharing what we're doing, how we're doing it, and the way we kind of piece together the patchwork of it, because for us it is that. And any information and ideas we've got, if we do any substantial amounts of work with people, we do have to find a way to be paid. We're happy to look at whether there are joint opportunities to gain funding. We're a very small team. There's only 4 of us that are paid. We are a living wage foundation employer, and we're very proud of that. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it there.